Okay, so it's been one of those days already. It's not even 4:30, and I don't even know where to begin. I try not to be one of those people that just feels like the day is ruined when things unexpected come along. It's hard though when it's more than one thing all kind of converging. I don't know. It all started out. I don't want to get too personal, but what is the thing with people getting so easily offended these days? I mean, I guess I really don't get it. Um, it's like grow a backbone, really. It's like there's a difference between rebuking someone, and yeah, I can be pretty blunt, but there's a difference between that and being verbally abusive. And when I'm told that I'm being verbally abusive, I know I'm not tearing someone down as a person and calling them names. The worst thing I might say is, just get the fuck away from me or something like that, but I won't resort to name calling. I certainly didn't earlier today. And, you know, there's a, you know, it, the Bible talks about getting offended quite a bit. It mentions offense. And Pastor John Bevere does a pretty good study on this in a book called Bait of Satan, where he talks about how getting offended is one of the devil's easiest tricks to. It can lure you into all kinds of sinful behaviors and attitudes, um, and he does a good job of laying that out and citing the scripture references. And Jesus said that it's impossible to live this life without getting offended. Um, and he equates offense to sin. It's when you study the linguistics or the language, the Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic, which I'm no scholar when it comes to those things, but I'm always interested to learn what different words mean in those languages. And um, the word, I forget if it's the Greek or the Hebrew, probably Greek, but the word for offense is, I believe it's scandalon, um, or it's something like that. It's derived from the word scandalon. A scandalon was a part of a trap, like an old-fashioned trap, where they might set up some kind of container or a box or something, and then there'd be like a stick underneath it, holding it up with like a tripwire attached to it, or I don't know if they did it like in the old cartoons where the guy'd be standing behind the tree, just like with the with the rope, ready to pull it. But anyway, that stick that holds that box up, that trap, is called a scandalon. So it's interesting. It talks about getting a getting offended is like walking into a trap. It's like a trigger that traps. So, um, when you look at just the way people are today, with everyone's getting offensive and they all got to be so PC because you might hurt someone's feelings. It's like that's not going to fix anything. It's just going to make things worse. Like you got to have a backbone. You got to have a thick skin if you're going to get through this life. If too many people think that life is just supposed to be comfortable. And I can tell you from my own, I got burned in this sense, and I do understand, I guess, why people get so easily offended. It's one of the things that drove me into drinking was getting offended and having my feelings hurt and feeling walked all over and abused, um, and then trying to live life without being bitter about it. It has made me wiser, but it's also made me a little more blunt, and I guess just, you know, I was never a tough love kind of guy, but Lord knows I've tried every other method. But to be called abusive when I'm and bear in mind, and I haven't talked much about this yet, but I am on the autism spectrum. I have Asperger's syndrome, high functioning autism. So if you know anything about that, there's a lot of quirks to it, and I try to be communicative about that. Um, I don't want to make it all about me and my needs. Um, but when it's someone who you're close to and who's known you for 25 years and understands autism or claims to, it's just interesting that they would choose to, I guess, disregard boundaries that you've asked for. So again, without going into too many details, that's what I felt happened. And I probably overreacted a bit about it, but I wasn't name calling and tearing the person down. I was just frustrated frustrated, and I think in a text it came across a lot angrier than it really was. Um, I was frustrated, but then the response back was way over the top. Just, how many times do I have to say to someone, don't don't take what I'm saying so personal. It's not personal. Not in the way you think it is. Like, why do people feel attacked by criticism? Criticism is good. And getting your feelings hurt once in a while is good too. I mean, man, it's made me a stronger person. I got a much thicker skin than I used to. If someone doesn't like me or has some opinion about me that's negative or whatever, screw them. I don't care. I do not care what you think about me. And of course, deep down we all care to some degree. We care what certain people think of us, people that we care about, people in our lives. And so that's what makes this frustrated. I guess I'm offended. Really. That's what I'm sitting here struggling with, is I'm feeling offended and I don't want to be, because I know I'm not an abusive person. I've probably been guilty of it in the past. I know I have, especially when I was a drunk and I was a jerk. I was not living morally. Um, and ironically, I thought I was so righteous and good. All that virtue signaling, it masks who you really are inside from yourself. But you can't run from it forever. So, yeah, I know I've been an asshole in the past, but and I can admit it. And that's how I know I wasn't being one this morning. So, I don't know. But I try to regard other people's feelings, and I feel bad now that there's this friction. But it just brings up this whole, this bigger issue of offense. And everyone getting so PC because you don't want to offend anyone. Let me tell you something. If you're somebody who gets offended easily, I love you, but you need to grow the fuck up. And I'm, again, talking from experience. I can tell you for sure that it's not going to work out well for you if you continue to go through life expecting everyone to just pamper you or tiptoe around your feelings and never do anything that's going to upset you. That is an unattainable life. That is unrealistic expectations of others, and they are not responsible for your happiness. You are. It's like my friend is upset now and offended, and does that make me responsible for my friend's happiness? Because they're choosing to make more of it than it really was? Was I making more of it than it really was? I mean, it's all so stupid now. It's just, I should have just not texted. Really, it wasn't that big of a deal that I needed to even text about it. If I would have just taken a breath and given it a few minutes, it would have just passed. So, no, I take responsibility for my part, but I still think that there's a lot of overreacting going on with this individual and with a lot of people I know. It's, and I get it, because we're in a culture right now where it's like nothing is sacred anymore, and it's hard not to get offended by things you see and hear, even if they're not directed at you. So, yeah, but taking it personally like that is, and then holding on to it and holding the grudge, those things are toxic. And a lot of these young people today are like that, and they're just going to grow up miserable. And I'm going to get a little political again here, but I believe that there's people in power that depend on youth to be easily offended and willfully ignorant and oversensitive and relying on their emotions over logic. They kind of groom them that way, I think, in schools and in colleges, if their parents haven't already done a good job of doing that, which I wasn't raised to be that way. I was raised by a hard-working dad who taught me how to work hard, and was raised in church. Parents are still married, come from a good family. I'm very blessed. But man, when not so much in high school, but definitely through college, I got really indoctrinated, got brainwashed, And being autistic, I was very naive too, and so, and I was young and living in the flesh, and just really was after whatever kind of lifestyle I thought made me happy, as long as I wasn't hurting anyone, right? That's kind of the how that all starts, that little mantra. And gave myself a get out of jail free card because I was raised in church, and just thought, well, I'll just have fun and live my life while I'm young. And but when you expect life to just be fun all the time and cozy, and you always get what you want and everything's equal and fair and everybody's happy, if that's what you expect in this in this life, on this side of heaven, you are going to spend the rest of your life feeling so disappointed and miserable and bitter. I'm just warning you, if you're a young person out there, or even if you're not a young person, if you're someone who gets easily offended, um, that's just what the enemy wants. Whoever you think the enemy is, whether you believe in the devil or not, I'm telling you right now that bad people, you are setting yourself up to be prey for bad people. If you are someone who is very sensitive and naive and believes the best in everybody and expects the best from everybody and thinks everything's always going to work out, I mean, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom here. I have a peace about it because I know that there's a better life that's waiting for me. Um, I'm sad to see other people miserable. I'm frustrated, especially as an autistic person, because as an autistic person, I generally don't understand people very well anyway. I feel like an alien on another planet sometimes around people. I just don't get why they do and say the things that they do. But I don't often understand why I do and say the things I do either. So, and I guess having a religious outlook has helped me just kind of narrow it down to, well, it's a sin issue. It's not going to go away. The best you can do is try to rise above it every day as much as possible. And just hold on to hope. Hold on to things like hope and faith. Which is difficult for an autistic person to do because we're more of we like things that are tangible, that we can examine and manipulate and dissect. And so abstract things like love and faith, empathy. I had to learn those things. But I think when you really set out to learn something and be good at it, you end up being better at it than those that went to school for a year, or for those who it comes naturally to. I think it's like that with anything, like music, for example. You know, and some of my favorite guitar players, like George Harrison, he was never classically trained to play the guitar. He taught himself, but he's an amazing guitarist, or was. He's since passed away. And then there's guys that can go to school to learn how to play an instrument, and they can learn how to play it really well, but it wasn't a natural talent that they stirred up in themselves, or like a God-given thing that they nurtured. And so I had to teach myself how to be a little more emotional and empathetic, and I think I got a pretty good grasp on it. Unfortunately, usually a lot of it comes in hindsight after a dramatic situation, and I start to play the tape backwards and realize how I might have come off. And I'm so tired of feeling bad about that, because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I understand that people are sensitive, and I don't want to go around offending everybody. Sometimes it's fun to offend certain people. Certain people need it. I think George Carlin said something like that once. If something offends you, you probably deserved it. I don't know. It just means you need to grow a backbone. That's what I think it means. And that's that tough love. Like, talking again. Sorry, but I really think that's it. That's key. Whatever that means for you, for me, it means knowing that I'm accepted by God and loved by God, and you all are too. When you can really get a sense of your identity that way, you don't need to worry about what other people think of you. You're screwed up, but God loves you anyway. So, and He's the creator of the universe, and He loves you. Like, that's such a crazy concept to grasp. But you got to get solid in your identity in Jesus, when you're not, then you place more value on what other people think and what society thinks, or your your lifetime goals or failures. You start to focus on those temporal things, and they seem to have more meaning, but they're never fulfilling. So yeah, I think that's key to developing a thicker skin. Is just realizing it's a strange kind of it's a twofold thing, because it requires a lot of humility, but it's also like this. It's like a divine pride. Just you can. Paul says something about it, like boasting in the Lord. Like, don't boast about yourself. Don't boast about anything. If you boast about anything in this life, boast in the Lord. In other words, yes, I'm a flawed person. I'm a sinner, but I'm loved by God. He counts me as worthy. He calls me his friend and his child. Now, I know that's a hard concept for a lot of people to grasp, because not everyone, depending on how you were raised, a lot of people are raised with bad fathers or no fathers, and so the view of fatherhood on a human level is very tainted. People have a bad impression of that, and even I, growing up as a kid, um, I thought God was just an angry guy up in the sky, just waiting to knock me down if I screwed up. Um, And it's not that I was raised that way. I mean, my dad wouldn't physically knock me down, but he would he would get pretty pissed if I screwed up as a kid. And he raised me to be really respectful of him. I never mouthed off to him. I always did what he told me, because he was a bit of like a drill sergeant, I think. But growing up, he taught me how to work really hard and appreciate a hard day's work, and that's become so valuable to me as I've gotten older. And we see a lot of kids growing up, they don't have that. They don't have a father to impart good things like that on them, and so I think what ends up happening is they have a negative view of what a father is supposed to be, and so that taints their image of what God is. And it took me a long time, really just until a few years ago. And I still want to slip into that old thinking, like God's mad at me all the time. But that pastor I mentioned earlier, John Bevere, I heard him preach a sermon once where he's talking about how he said to his kids one day, he said, your mom and I, we love you very much. There's nothing you can do to change that. There's nothing you can do to make us love you any more or any less. We just love you. The kids are like, cool, Dad, cool, it's awesome. And then he said to him, but you are in control of how pleased your mom and I are with you. And they're like, oh. So I know I do a lot of things that aren't pleasing to God. We all do. I try. But just knowing that I'm loved and accepted, it I wish other people had that. If there's anything that frustrates me even more, once my, the prefrontal cortex that gets roused by anger, once that settles down, and I really just look at the situation from that God perspective again, it makes me. That's where the empathy, I guess, I start to really exercise it, which is unfortunate, because I should do more of that in in the heat of the moment. I've gotten better at that, I think, but it sucks when you say something that you regret saying, or shouldn't have said, or maybe you thought it was fine at the time, but it really upset this other person, and I don't like to be at odds with people, and yet I seem to, I guess just with my bluntness, I seem to do it anyway. Yeah. Anyway, had to get that off my chest before I went for my walk. Alright, I guess I'll see you next time around.